In this piano tutorial, I want to share a different way of playing a progression that I'm sure most of you guys have probably encountered, right? So let's say we are in the key of C major. This progression starts on the 4, and I've heard it mostly used within the chorus of a song, right? And maybe the time signature changes for this progression, but the concept or the idea is the same, right? We play a 4, then a 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, and then a 1. And then from here, we would basically turn it around by using something like a 5-1-4 progression. 5, 1, and then we're back in the same progression. 5, 3, 6, 2, and then we end with a 5, and then a 1. Right? But there's this song named In the Name of Jesus, which actually uses this progression, but it completely changes everything around, right? It adds a bunch of different passing chords and substitutions, right? And I'm going to demonstrate it first, and then I'm going to explain my thought process behind each movement, okay? So we start off on the 4, very similar, but it sounds something like this. Right, so as you just heard, right, it included a bunch of different chords, but we started on the same chord, right? We started on F, and what we did here was go immediately into a borrowed 2-5-1, right? We borrowed a minor 2-5-1 from E minor, right? So we're basically substituting that 5 within the progression, right? Usually we play a 4, then a 5, and then a 3. But in this case, what we did was play 4, then we borrowed this minor 2. So we're playing an F sharp half diminished as a 2, then a B, B7 flat 9 as a 5 to get to the 3, which would be the 1, right? And then for the 1, we're actually, instead of playing a regular 3 as an E minor, I'm actually voicing it as a C over E for this song in particular, right? But it can fit for any other song as well. So once again, F sharp half diminished, which is basically just an A minor over F sharp. Then a B7 flat 9, which is basically just a B7 with the flat 9, right? Just as the name says, this is the 9, which is the same as a 2, and we made it flat, okay? Then I played a 1 over 3. And then from here, right, if you remember, the original progression goes from 3 to 6. So from here, instead of going directly to the 6, I played the E as a passing chord. In this case, an E7. And we're playing it over the 3rd, right, which would be an A flat. And then we land on the 6, and I love this voicing for the 6, right? We have an A, E, G, then we have this B and E, which sound really good when they're right next to each other, right? So, or within context, that dissonance sounds really good in this minor chord. But then this is where the progression sort of takes a shift, right? Instead of going to a 2, we're actually going to go to a chord that we can substitute for the 2, which is a B flat or flat 7, right? In this case, it would be voiced something like this. But before we get to this B flat, or actually let me explain sort of a little bit of theory, or I guess we can call it my theory, right? Behind why we can substitute a D minor for a B flat. If we take a look at D minor, it has 2 notes that are also included in B flat. And for that simple reason, most of the time you can substitute one for the other, right? So this is our next chord, B flat. We can either voice it as a major 9 or as a 6-9. But before we get here, we actually use a a secondary dominant, which would be the 5 of B flat, which is F. And we're going to voice it in this way, right? The minor 7th, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th. And I love that transition between this chord and this chord, right? It's very jazzy, right? You hear that in a lot of jazz music. Or even in a 2-5-1. Something like that. But we're going from A, right? That A minor to the F and then the B flat. Okay? So let's do it from the beginning up to this point. That way you can grasp it better. So 6, F, flat 7, okay? And then from here, there's an extra chord added right before we get to the 5, which is technically our next main chord. And we're going to play this chord right here. Right? It's very odd. It says F sharp major 9 sharp 5, but I'm not thinking about the name in this case. All I'm thinking about is I want to get to the 5, so I'm going to use this half step up, this note half step up from the 5, and I'm simply going to play the dominant 7th or the minor 7th, and then I'm going to play the major chord that is a whole step up from that original A flat, right? So it would be B flat, and I use that as my chord on the right hand, right? It's a lot of little intricate details that we can memorize to play these types of voicings, okay? So from here, we go to the 5, which I voice as a G, 9 sus4, then I invert it to a G major over B, and then we're back to the 1, okay? And then from here is where the turnaround happens, and the way that I do it is I play a 1, then a 2, then I play this diminished chord, which is a C diminished over E flat, right? And then a C over E, and then we're back to the F. Now in this second half of the progression, I switched some things around, right, to fit to the song. So I played a F major, and instead of doing this again, I'm actually just going to use the B as my passing chord, right? B7 in this case, to get to the C over E, then the passing back to the 6, and then instead of doing this again, we're actually going to play this gospel, I guess, movement that you can hear in a lot of songs. Right, we're playing an E diminished 7th in this voicing right here. Then we play an F minor 6, right? An F minor 6 is simply an F minor with a major 6. Then we play a 1 over 5, which is C over G. And then from here, we're actually going to use this A7 flat 9, right? Similar voicing to a different chord that we used, right, with a flat 9. Then we do a 2-5-1. In this case, I'm voicing it as a dominant D, right? A dominant 7, a D dominant 7, sorry. And then the 5, G7, then back to the 1, right? So once again, all together. Finish on the 1. So hopefully you're able to capture something from this lesson and be able to apply to any other song as well. And if you have any questions about any of the movements, you can leave a comment down below and below the video, right below the description box. And hopefully I see you again in the next video.